Good morning, good morning, good morning. How is everyone doing this morning? I hope you are well. I hope you are feeling good. I need to just do a few things real super quick here, technical stuff. Make sure that everything is working as it should. Give me 2 shakes here. And we're going to share the screen real fast. Going to Facebook. Okay. So, I'm a little bit late this morning. I was going to stream from um, my new favorite spot over by Al Lopez Park, and I was all set up. I was ready to go, and then at like 10:10, a whole ream of children, like 30 children, came out of the rec center that's there, and so there's a where I park is right by the basketball court, and so they were going to play basketball and hang out, and I guess have outside time. So that's not going to work for my live stream, and so I had to move. And so this is the next best thing. And so we're back at my other little lake that I love, and we're going to just make this work. So that's what's today. I actually have had a pretty good morning so far. I was up super early and hit the showers, did my Bible writing, all the stuff, and now it is time to be with you all. So here we are, and today we're going to talk about boundaries in relationships. And do we need them? What are they? Do we not need them? There's lots and lots of differing opinions, and so hopefully if you stop by and you're in the chat, you'll say hello and you will share your opinions with all the rest of us, and then those who watch the replay will be able to share their opinion in the comments as well. So we need to start by figuring out exactly what boundaries in relationships are, and then we can go from there. So let's figure out what boundaries are. And I have a definition. Give me 2 shakes for it to load. All right. So in the context of relationships, we know like a boundary normally is like some sort of fence or wall that people have put up to define a space, right? So people have fences between their property and the next person's property. There's fences, walls, Trump is big on the wall on the border with Mexico. Those are boundaries, and they are meant to keep people safe a lot of times. And so in the context of relationships, then Webster defines boundaries as an invisible line that defines where you end and another person begins. It's a clear statement or understanding of what you are responsible for, what you're okay with, and what you're not okay with. So, rather than a tool to control or change your partner, a boundary is a framework really for your own self-control and your own self-protection. So, a boundary should be, I think, more about you and how you will respond in a situation than an attempt to control people around you. Okay, so there's 3 core elements of a relational boundary, and the first one is ownership. And ownership clarifies who owns what. So I own my feelings. I own my choices. I own my values and my behavior. That is my responsibility, and those are not anyone else's responsibility to take care of for me, right? No one should be held to the standard of keeping me happy, of being my yardstick, keeps me in line morally. Like, none of that stuff. That is mine and mine alone, right? Between me and God, if you believe that way. I do. So that's between me and God. So that's ownership. That's number one. Number two, the three elements. The second element is protection. So this preserves your personal, mental, emotional, and physical safety. It tells whoever you're in a relationship with, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your parents. You know, like we have relationships with so many people. And so this tells that person that you're in the relationship with to be in a relationship with me. This is the respect and safety that I require, right? So this is how it basically gives, like Dr. John Deloney says, who I love so much, it gives a blueprint to be successful. And then the third part is access rules, right? So we have ownership and then protection, and now we're going into access rules. So it dictates how much access another person has to your time, your energy, your body, and your emotions. So it is like an invisible fence, basically, that says, here is the line, and, today I have 45 minutes, but I have a boundary for the show, right? So when I'm live, I know that by 11:45, by 11:15-ish, I want to be out so that I can move on to being with my daughter and doing other things. So that's a boundary that I set for myself, right? Okay. So we have now defined boundaries, and we're going to move on to the three different ideas. Send one string to the primary. I wonder what this is for. Let me think. I wonder what happened here. This isn't right. La la la. Let me think. We have too many things going on here. Let me think. I just don't know what's going on. It says I have a poor connection. I don't know. I don't think you guys can hear me. We're not going to end the stream. Can you guys still hear me? Probably not. Wait, who knows? Okay. We need a new window, and we need YouTube. Come back, and we need to go over here. It's like every day I cannot just have a normal live stream. Okay. All right. I don't know what happened. I don't know why it did that, but here we are. Okay. All right. So we've defined boundaries now, and I have found that there are three very different opinions about having boundaries in relationships. So let's talk about the three distinct views about boundaries, and you can tell me where it is exactly that you fall on that line. So some people think that no boundaries are needed in a relationship because respect and love will be enough in that relationship. So I was talking with someone yesterday, and I was talking with someone, and they said that, I don't believe that you would need a boundary in a relationship as long as there's respect and love. And so that's one side of the coin here that no boundaries should be needed as long as there's respect and love. And then another viewpoint would be the article that I want to share with you today, and that absolutely there must be boundaries for everyone's success and emotional and physical safety. And that's an article that we're going to look at by Derek Hart, another psychologist that I love. And so then somewhere in the middle of those two is Dr. Henry Cloud. He is also a very famous psychologist. He's written a book called Boundaries, and he has actually different versions of that. Boundaries with kids, boundaries in marriage, boundaries in general. I've read the Boundaries in general book. I haven't read the marriage or the kids or any of those. But he is kind of a middle line where boundaries act as a bridge. So we're going to talk about all of these today. So we've got 3 different perspectives. I don't know where you fall on this perimeter. So what we're going to do is talk about the 3 perspectives. So let's talk about Derek Hart's idea first. So what we need to do is I want to bring up and link that article so that you all have it if I can. Where is my let's go here. 1 second, let me get the article. I had it pulled up and it's not here. So we'll go get it again and see if I can share it with you all. Derek Hart believes that boundaries are necessary, especially in emotionally avoidant relationships where you have a problem that's happened, right? So maybe trust has been lost, or maybe something has occurred. Okay, I don't know, how do I share this? 2 shakes, let me just figure out how to share this. Save post, I don't want to save the post, I want to share it with y'all. Here we go, here's the share. I got it, don't worry. I got it. I need to figure out how I can get it in a link form. There's the link. Okay. Here is the link, and it is coming at you right now. Here's the link. Here we go. Okay. Here is the article by Derek Hart. And so he says that his premise is the moment that you set a boundary in a relationship, 2 hearts break in completely different ways. And here's why. So here's what he says, that you set a boundary and 2 hearts break at that boundary. So number 1, he talks about every boundary that we set creates 2 realities. So when I set a boundary with someone, then I feel protected, but the other person in the relationship may feel rejected, right? So that is a very real feeling. You know, if I set a boundary that says in a relationship, that this is my line physically in a relationship, that I'm only going to go so far without marriage, okay? So then the other person absolutely, legitimately could feel rejected in that moment. That's one example. Okay? So both people are having very real experiences and very real feelings. So when we set a boundary, Derek Hart believes it's very important that we understand and do set our boundary with the knowledge that It's not just our reality that matters. Yes, we may very well need to set that boundary, but it's not all about us. So number two that Derek Hart says is that boundaries always cost something. The healthy boundary that we may be setting and we may be celebrating, like, wow, I'm going to do something different in this new relationship. So I'm going to have a boundary where, like there's some families, like Duggar family, that their boundary, because of their personal beliefs, is that, their kids are not even allowed to kiss before marriage. Like they have a courtship only where they're supervised and there's no physical contact at all before marriage, other than I think they decide how that is a boundary that they have set. But they always cost something. So Derek Hart says that the boundary that you set may be starving someone else of a very real and legitimate need for connection. So, and that's a very valid point, right? So in the Duggars boundary situation, the other person, the both of them actually probably before marriage feel very starved of connection. So while the boundary might be necessary and they might feel it's necessary, it also, it's not easy. So pretending there's no cost is emotional bypassing, disguised as growth, Derek says. And then number three, he says, when you need space, so when you say, I need space to process something, then you get safety, but the other person may be viewing it as abandonment, right? They say that I can't reach you because you're creating this space. So if you say I can't discuss your family, then they get peace, but you also get isolation, and both things are true. All right. So number four, no, we have a good connection. I just don't like it garbled. It is garbled. It's garbled. I'm going to run a speed test real quick. Hold on. Speed test. Hawaii. Hold on. Wait out. And my phone is recording today. I did some more Googling, and the Wi-Fi is on, not supposed to be on, I don't think. It's fine. Turn off my location, I did all kinds of stuff, like make people still, it's lovely. I like that. Sure. Oh, it's lovely. Bye. Stop it. Stop it. Stop. All right. Let's see. Check. I don't know why it's so garbly. Why is it garbly? All right. Let's see. So, I have nothing now. I've got nothing. Stop. Alright, we've got a picture now. I don't know, guys. Alright, this is frustrating. This is frustrating. Alright, so those of you that are watching the replays, because I know a bunch of you are watching the replays, even though I'm not getting a ton of people that are showing up live, I just wonder, like, I don't know, what do you think I should do different? Because I don't really know what to do. We're just trying to make this work, and I really want it to work. I want to build a community where people feel like they have a space that they can pop in and they can be themselves, and we can talk and hang out, and I don't know, something is not quite right. I don't know. I'm not ready to give up by any means, but I would like it to be the most successful. I don't know if I should try a different day of the week. Maybe try Friday instead of Thursday. I'm not sure. I might try Friday this week. I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay, so we are talking about boundaries. We're trying to get through Derek Hart's version. All right. So if we get back to Derek Hart and his idea that when you set a boundary, two people have very different realities inside of that boundary, right? So number 4, he talks about emotional intelligence means counting the cost. So you don't just feel like, wow, I've grown to this place where I've grown, and so I'm going to set this boundary because of that growth, without realizing that it's going to cost something. So sometimes we have to set a boundary, and we have to do it with grief, right? We know that we would like it to be different. We would like to not set that boundary, but that boundary is necessary in this moment. So we have to realize that we're going to set the boundary, and we're going to say, I need this boundary, and both of us are losing something. Whoever is at the other end of the boundary and you're both losing something. So you set the boundary still, but you hold that fact that the person on the other end is more than likely hurting. So number 5, the healthiest couples or people in the relationship mourn these boundaries together. So we don't celebrate boundaries. In this case, they acknowledge the loss. They acknowledge that this boundary protects me and it hurts you. So I need this boundary and we both lose something. So they hold both truths without fixing either one of them, right? So number 6, boundaries are about survival, especially if you're in a relationship that trust has been broken or something like that. Those boundaries are about survival and not about victory. So every boundary is a place where love hits a wall, where connection stops, and where two people can't meet. And that's not something to celebrate, Derek Hart says. That's something to grieve and still do it anyway because it's necessary. And then, so number 7, the last thing Derek Hart talks about is stop making pain disappear. And that's something that I have really, really had to learn in the last 6 months, that it's okay to have feelings and just sit with them. It's not a desperate urge to make those feelings go away. Again, this morning I had another big wave of grief that occurred, and everything in you goes, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel this anymore. And then you sit and you say, you know what? It's okay to feel this. It's okay. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to feel it and know that this is a part of life, and this is something that I need to feel. All right, so Derek Hart basically says that when we build boundaries, especially in areas where there has been some sort of uh, broken trust, especially, or sometimes it isn't whether to have the boundaries, it's whether you'll acknowledge that they cost the person that is trying to love you. So we're not going to make the pain disappear. Uh, Building those boundaries and having emotional intelligence isn't about building walls with confidence, but it's building them with fears, knowing that they may be necessary and they're not ideal in all situations, right? So it would be great if both people had the level of capacity and respect. Then we get more to this other viewpoint that you shouldn't need boundaries, right? You shouldn't need boundaries. So that's the whole other side of the spectrum, that if people really love each other and care about each other, there won't be a need for boundaries because things will just flow. I actually have two people that have told me this um, recently, and the one person said, a relationship should be two people who just enjoy each other's company. And that's all well and good. That's a great, I think it's a very romantic and idealistic view of relationships because people are people, right? We're not always kind, and we have a different picture of what kindness looks like, right? We have a different picture of what love looks like. So we're not always going to get it right for the other person. We're not. And I love going back to Dr. John Deloney. He has this idea that, especially in your close relationships, that you should have conversations that look like, I want to love you the best that I can. And can you give me a path to what that looks like for you today? Like, how can I love you best today? What do you need from me today? And I think that that's more the midpoint where maybe Dr. Cloud says, like, we all have expectations, ideals, and those kind of are boundaries. And so knowing that people are not all the same. Oh, it's overheating. Come on. Come on. Come on. Knowing that we're not all the same, we're not always going to do things the same. Let me just get this to stop overheating. We're not always going to do things the same. And knowing how the other person in the relationship wants and needs to be loved is very, very important. Let me see. We have to reconnect here. Hold on. I gotta reconnect. Man, I gotta figure this out. I can't use Streamlabs anymore. I think we're gonna have to go back to the whole, just my video, because I think Streamlabs is not working. It would be really, really great if we just had 50 subscribers and we could get on with this, right? And then I could just use the YouTube app and everything would be fine. But that is not our reality right now. So that's that. All right, so we have Derek Hart's position where boundaries are an absolute. We have the other position of some of the people in my life and my friends that say, no, they shouldn't be necessary at all. And then we have Dr. Cloud in the middle. And let's talk about Dr. Cloud says that, like we read, boundaries are property lines and they preserve individual freedoms in order that love can thrive. So Dr. Cloud looks at boundaries as not an attack on a person at all, but a healthy way to keep each other not holding the other hostage, really. Like, this is my boundary. And so, like, let's have an example. I have a boundary in my life that I have had lots of people in my life in the past that their method of communication when they are angry is yelling and screaming. And so now I have a boundary that I don't want that in my life anymore. And so if that's your communication style, then I accept you and I love you exactly how you are. And if you choose to yell and scream in a situation, then I, for my own personal safety, am going to remove myself from the situation, right? Because the whole point of my life these days is to be peaceful. So it's just a boundary that I have, a very clear boundary. So that's a good example of where Dr. Cloud would say that it's a very right and just to have a boundary like that, that preserves yourself in the situation. I had a situation come up where I presented something that was really important to me, and the person that was hearing it was like, oh, that's so stupid, right? So in that moment, then I have a choice. I have lots of choices, but I can choose to let their words hurt me, or I can choose to say, you know what, I don't believe that, and not take that in. But that depends on where my boundary lies. Am I going to be okay in myself to be like, yeah, that's your opinion, welcome to it. It's not going to hurt me or affect me. So I'm going to make a choice to be with people that are kind and loving and caring and, all of those lists of things. I'm not going to choose to purposely put myself in a situation, again, a boundary, where people are negative and controlling and, those types of behaviors. Even my friend Maria, who passed away a few weeks ago, at one point in our relationship, Maria, although she was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman and a wonderful friend, Maria had a tendency to just really kind of be a little bit like Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh, and a little tiny bit negative, and always like, oh man, woe is me, woe is me. And she had been through a lot, and she had every right to feel the way she felt. But because I was also going through so much in my own life, being around that negativity 24/7 was so much for me to deal with, and I found myself becoming more and more sad and more on that same page of negativity. And that's not what I wanted in my life. So at one point, I had to say to Maria, I love you dearly. You are an amazing friend. And I need to step away if you can't try to be more positive when we're together. I need to step away. And so we did. I stepped away for a couple of months, really, to try and get my head back in a good space. And I had to limit kind of some exposure because that's where she was at in her life. And I wanted to be supportive and a good friend. And I knew that that was killing me. So that would be a great example of where Derek Hart says, I had to set a boundary, and it cost me something. I missed her terribly, and she missed me terribly. So there was a huge cost there. But it had to be done because inside, I was losing myself, and I had to step up and say, this is not okay. So that's a good example where a boundary would be healthy. And Dr. Cloud would say that that's absolutely necessary in relationships. So who do you think is right here? Is there a right? There may not be a right. It may be different for everyone. So let me see if I can get to this point in my notes here. So if you have an idea or a thought, I'd love it if you would pop it in the comments, and we can have a discussion after the fact. So I don't know. I'm really thinking that maybe we'll give this a go on Friday instead of Thursday, and I will set it up ahead of time so that if anyone did want to join on Thursday, then they would realize that I do have an upcoming stream, but we're just going to try it on Friday morning instead and just see if that day works any better for people, because I'm not really sure. But the whole idea here, once again, is to build a community of people where we are loving and caring and kind to each other, and people can show up no matter what they're going through, and they will be met with a shoulder to lean on, someone to walk with them in their stuff, and people that are loving and kind. So that was what I wanted to talk about today. I'm a little bit disjointed, and I get that. I have a lot of things that I'm thinking about too, a lot of areas where I'm trying to grow as a person, and it's really a lot to take in and process all of the stuff. So that's me being real today too, that while I wanted to offer this on boundaries today, I also am, I'm thinking about where do I fall here? And, what do I think about this? So, I don't know. I think I definitely see value in boundaries. And I just don't know. I don't do boundaries well, let me say that. Maybe I don't do boundaries so well. I'm trying to figure it out just like you guys. So I would love to know your thoughts, and you can leave them below. I am going to sign off for now, and I've got to try to figure out what I can do about this Streamlab issue. So I'm going to do some more research. If you have any ideas, let me know. I am going to head out for now, and I will catch you on Friday morning, hopefully. All right? Lots of love to everyone. I will talk to you again soon. Bye for now.